Lesson 10.4b, arc length and perimeter. Make sure you have your Unit 10 note packet, a calculator, and a pencil ready to go. Today, our goal is I can use the arc length and perimeter of sectors to solve problems.
Yesterday, you were introduced to the word sector, and we learned that it represents part of a circle. Looking at the first chunk in your notes, it says, how do we find the arc length plus perimeter of half of a circle? Let's pause for a moment and talk about what the word arc is when it comes to circles. Arc is part of the circumference. If I trace along the outside edge, the part that I trace there, I can call the arc. So now with that said, our job in this lesson is to find arc length and to find perimeter of the sector. I will tell you right now, I'm giving you this, our radius equals 10 inches. Go ahead and write that down somewhere next to the circle. Our first problem again is taking half of a circle. So you can see with my picture here, I have half of a circle. Our arc length represents part of the circumference, yes? So let's start by using the circumference formula to help us. Circumference equals pi times diameter. Write that with me. Let's plug in the values that we have. So circumference equals, we're going to use our approximation, 3.14, and we need our diameter length. We know our radius is 10, and we know that radius is half the diameter, so diameter is double the radius. We need 10 plus 10, 20. So 3.14 times 20. Enter that in your calculator now. If you don't have a calculator, pause the video and go get one. The calculator shows me 62.8, and this is referring to length, so inches. There's my circumference. Is that my final answer? No, because I'm just looking for the length of this distance around the sector, which is half a circle here. So I now need to do a little additional work. How I'm modeling this on the board here, organize it in your notes the same. I need to go and take half of my circumference. So I could write it like this. Half of, in math, when you're taking a number of another number, means multiply. So half of 62.8. Or I could go 62.8 divided by 2. Multiplying is the same as dividing by the reciprocal. So go ahead and pick whichever one you want to enter in your calculator. What is the arc length? I get 31.4, and this is referring to length, so we want to make sure we label it inches, since that's the unit we're working with. Now we're not done. Our job now is to find the perimeter all the way around this sector. So what part are we missing? Well, we're missing this segment right there. How could I figure out the length of this segment right here? Well, we know from the center to an outside edge is the radius, and we have the radius. So this right here is the diameter of the circle. I just have to double my radius, which is what? 20. So now I want to take my arc length. Let's write this underneath perimeter. We want to take, so to find the perimeter, we want to take our arc length, and in this case, we're going to add the diameter to it to get our perimeter. Let's plug the values in. We have our arc length, it's 31.4, and we need to add our diameter, which was what again? 20. What do you get when you take 31 and 4/10 plus 20? 51.4 inches. We want to make sure that we bring in the appropriate label. This is a length measurement, so there's no exponents that are part of my units. We just found an arc length and a perimeter for a sector of a circle. Let's go to the next example. It says, how do you find the arc length and perimeter of a quarter of a circle? First of all, go ahead and write this somewhere near your circle. I'm going to give you that the diameter is 16 inches. We want to specifically focus on a quarter of this circle. So this circle is cut up into 4 equal pieces. We just want one of them. And that, finding the arc length, we want to find the arc length of just that quarter, which is just the outside portion. And it makes up part of the total circumference of the circle. So we're going to use our circumference formula. Circumference equals pi times diameter. Let's plug the values in that we know. Circumference equals, here's our approximation, 3.14, times The value for the diameter is 16 inches. Go ahead and calculate that out. Circumference is equal to 50.24 inches. That is not our final answer because we just want to find this portion of the circumference. And remember, this piece made up what of the entire circle? It made up a quarter of the entire circle. So my circumference here, I'm looking for just a fourth. Go ahead and organize your notes with me how I'm going to show this. We just want to get a fourth of our circumference there. So you could go like this, a fourth of, when you're taking a number of another number, of means multiply, 50.24. Or you could take 50.24 and divide it by 4. What do you get when you do that? I get 12.56, and this is referring to length, so it's going to be labeled inches. Our next job is to find the perimeter of this sector. Thinking about it, 7th graders, we got the arc length, right? That was 12.56. What didn't we get yet? To get the perimeter, we need this segment length and this segment length. So that's what we're missing. What would this represent in a circle? The radius. Well, we know the diameter is 16, radius is half a diameter, so this would be 8 inches, and this would be 8 inches. To find our perimeter, write this with me, we need our arc length, which we got, plus one of our radius, plus another radius, which radius plus radius ends up being a what? A diameter. So let's plug our values in there. We have our arc length, which is 12.56, plus one of our radius, which is 8, plus radius again, 8. And remember, this part right here is really your diameter. Go ahead and calculate that out. Go add those three values together. What do you get? 28.56 inches. All right, let's look at the next example. This time, we're figuring out the arc length and perimeter of 2/3 of a circle. Thinking about our arc length, 2/3 of a circle is that, right? We want to know this distance around the outside of my sector here. I'm going to give you, write this somewhere near the circle, radius here is a value of 5 inches. We're going to start, since our arc length is part of the circumference, write that circumference formula. Plug your values in. So circumference equals 3.14 times diameter. This time I'm given radius, right? We know it takes 2 radius to make a full diameter. So we need to go 5 plus 5, which is 10. So go ahead and multiply that out. I get 31.4 inches. Now that's the circumference. That's how many inches it takes to get all around the circle. But I really only want to know 2/3 of the circle. I don't care about this piece right here. That can come off. I just want to know that 2/3. So I would be taking 2/3 of the circumference. Go ahead and do this work with me. I only want 2/3 of my circumference. So I could write it like this and type it in as a fraction, 2/3 times 31.4. Or I could go 31.4 divided by 3. That gives me what 1/3 is. That gives me how much just 1/3 of the circle would be, but I need another third, so I would times it by 2. Whatever one you want to type in your calculator, you go for it. What is the arc length for 2/3 of my circle here? I get it to be 20.93, and that 3 repeats, so I'm going to put a notation bar over it, inches. To find the perimeter, now let's talk about that. We found our arc length, which is the distance around the outside, but what we didn't find yet is that segment and that segment. So while we got this value for a perimeter around the outside, we have these 2 new outside edges because it's a sector and we took it away from the entire circle. What would this length be? This is representing a radius, so this would have a length of 5 inches. And then this other one right here is also representing a radius. It's going from the center of the circle to an outside edge. It is 5 inches. So we would take to find perimeter, our arc length, which is 20.93 repeating, and we would add 5 plus 5. Now, when you have 2 radius, what does that make? Yeah, that's really a value of your diameter, right? So 20.93, repeating, plus 10, well, that's just going to give me 30.93, and then that digit 3 repeats, and I want to label it inches. Oh, Miss Kluber should have put that up here. 30.93, that digit 3 repeats, inches. Let's look at the next example. With this example for number 4, I'm going to give you that the diameter, write this with me somewhere near the circle, is 6 inches. And I'm going to have you pause the video and do this one on your own. Come back and check your work with mine. The arc length that you should get is 14.13 inches, and the perimeter is 20.13. Pause the video, take a look at my work right here, see if it differs from yours, how it does, try resolving it. Key thing, remember, when it comes to the arc length, I only want the arc of my sector. And an arc represents an outside part, so it's part of the circumference. I need to find 3/4 of my circumference. So I could do it like this with 3/4 times my circumference, or the circumference divided by 4, and then I want 3 of those, so times 3. When it comes to the perimeter, you gotta think about those parts of the sector that maybe were hidden because they represent an inside part of the circle. They're now an outside edge. So can't forget those. This right here would be my radius. This would be a radius as well. So we have to take our arc length plus 3 plus 3. Remember, 2 radius equal a diameter. So you could just go arc plus diameter. The perimeter is 20.13 inches. There is a challenge problem. I want to encourage you to try that, and you can email a picture of your work for that problem.